Colorado's wave of COVID cases begins to overwhelm hospitals. A rising number of facilities openly worry if they'll have the staff and the space to treat pandemic patients, along with all of life's other emergencies. The news on the medications we need to treat patients is significantly more encouraging. Plus, the fact that even a 9-year-old gets what's going on and wants a word with you adults. We look into why the Broncos don't have to play by the same rules as the rest of us, and a high school coach has some strong words about young people taking this more seriously than the grown-ups. If you're watching this, you're not out somewhere swapping droplets, and for that I thank you, because this is next. The intensive care unit is full. Sorry. Imagine hearing that from a hospital. Mesa County put out that exact warning today, one day after a hospital in Pueblo hit capacity, 1 week after we told you that Denver Health hit its traditional patient max. So the system can deal with one-off instances of patients overwhelming a single hospital, but now we have a situation where there's 2, 3, rising amount of Colorado's hospitals, more than a third, now say that they expect a staffing shortage in the next 2 weeks. So that is where we are at this point, with no sign that the spread of the virus is slowing. We've hit 1,500 people hospitalized with COVID-19 in Colorado. It's stretching the healthcare system as it has not been stretched before. And just before, we know that there are some people who have said that they're just going to defiantly gather in large groups for Thanksgiving. Our current test positivity rate is 12.3%. It's right around our weekly average of 12.8%. Number tells us the virus is spreading unchecked in communities across Colorado. COVID cases dipped at the beginning of the week, so we were hoping for a plateau, but no. Mountain of 5,200 new cases yesterday. Weekly average is 4,750 cases per day. Now, we know that most of them are not going to be severe. We also know that each is an opportunity, if people are not careful, to spread that virus to somebody who is going to have a tough time with it. One fair question that we get is whether those of us who are covering COVID, pushing people to listen to the health experts, are really practicing what we preach. Or whether we're pulling a stunt like California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom, calling on people to social distance and then going to a swanky dinner with lobbyists. I brought that up with our Chris Vanderveen in our ongoing series of conversations about COVID, and Chris's answer was pretty fiery. I would like you to hear all of it.
I've got my mother at home who lives in the house that I grew up in, and she's living by herself. And Thanksgiving is obviously next week, and there's lots of things that we would like to do as a family. This is my mother, who really hasn't been outside a whole lot in the last, 8 months. And there's things that I'd like to do. I'd like to protest my government by simply meeting her and saying hello to her and meeting with her inside and saying, yeah, this is an idea of patriotism. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to live with myself if I'm the one who ends up getting my mother sick at the age that she's in right now, and because she hasn't been outside, because her son came inside her house at Thanksgiving and got her sick. That's crazy to me. And you live it, I live it. This is not a hoax. This is as real as it gets. I've got a twin brother who's an ER physician, who's seeing these patients on a day-to-day basis. This isn't a hoax. This isn't a joke. This is as real as it gets. And I hate that we have to be that honest. But I also think what we've lacked in the last 6 months is a dose of honesty. And I think part of the reason that we're in this spot where we're in right now is because we haven't been honest with the situation. We've sort of joked about it. We've laughed about it. We've talked about sort of fear porn and all those type of things that reporters like me and you get online. And yet at the end of the day, talk to an ER physician, talk to a nurse that works on an ICU floor, and ask them if this is real. And they will tell you 100%, you're damn right it's real.
My full in-depth conversation with Chris Vanderveen, where we get into hospital capacity issues across Colorado and also our new level purple restrictions. That's on the next YouTube channel. So tonight is the last night for dine-in service at restaurants across the metro area. Tomorrow it's on to level red for Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, Broomfield, Denver, Douglas, Jefferson counties. This is the state's new red. Old red is now purple. It's really good to be orange, though, as long as it's Broncos orange. Mile High is still allowed to have 5,700 fans there. Our Marshall Zellinger shows us the few exceptions to the new rules.
At least 7 counties have variances for different venues. I say at least 7 because not all variances are listed on the state's website. There, fixed it. For example, Gaylord of the Rockies has a variance allowing for greater capacity. So does Park Meadows Mall and Cherry Creek Shopping Center. Here, it's 50% capacity and no more than 175 in one room. The Denver Zoo and Botanic Gardens are outdoor venues with variances too. Before thinking you can try to request a variance for a backyard Thanksgiving, the venue has to be at least 30,000 square feet to be considered. Going back to Wednesday, when we asked what it would take to reconsider the Mile High exception.
The Broncos have been wonderful partners throughout the course of this pandemic.
Wonderful partners is not the official metric, but since Mile High's exception is called a plan and not a site-specific variance, it's not clear in the 68-page public health order what has to happen for it to be reconsidered. If it was a site-specific variance, like the malls, here's what the public health order states. If 2 cases of COVID are linked to the site, the county and the site work together to keep it from happening again or having it spread more. That does not automatically revoke the variance. But under new level red starting tomorrow, all these variances are supposed to be reviewed to see if they should continue or be suspended. Here's a nugget that I learned from both Denver Public Health and Jeffco Public Health. They don't know what the criteria yet is for those site-specific variances to be reconsidered once level red happens tomorrow. It's as though the rules were written and we don't know how to enforce them just quite yet from the state level. I will say one other thing quickly, Kyle, an answer to what I did yesterday that I finally got from Public Health. If you have one of those greenhouses, yurts, bubbles outside of a restaurant, under level red, unless it's open air, you're not supposed to be able to use them. It sounds like if you can air those out, restaurants at least will be able to use those isolated outdoor venues.
Yeah, I heard from one of my favorite breweries that was like, hey, if you're coming to the tent, we got to open the flaps. We're going to open the flaps. We're going to air it out a little bit. So hold on a second. Did I hear that right? That the state's new level red for all the metro area, basically, they're supposed to go through and review the exceptions to the rule, but they don't have guidance on what kind of review process they're supposed to have?
That's what I heard from Denver and Jeffco. And again, a site-specific variance were the malls, the museums. I learned late as I was putting that story together that Mile High is a separate, it's a plan, so that it doesn't necessarily fall under the same criteria. I'm waiting to hear back from the state what would be the criteria for the stadium.
Marshall Zellinger, who is always a wonderful partner. Marshall, thank you. So the wonderful partner, easy for me to say, the Broncos can still have their thousands of fans at Mile High while Colorado's high school athletes are playing in empty stadiums. You got young people out there, they're going out of their way to pursue their passion safely without a lot of the protections that are given to the pros. And it would seem without a lot of with more common sense than some adults out there. Cherokee Trail head football coach Joe Johnson had some thoughts about that.
We see what's going on with, adults out in society and these, college and pro programs that can afford to test every day and have these rapid tests and do all these things. We couldn't do any of that. And most of the schools can't do any of that. The fact that we're actually playing is unbelievable. And I think it's not a good commentary that a bunch of teenagers are showing themselves to be a little more responsible and disciplined than our entire society is.
Coach Johnson gave all the credit to his players and coaches and training staff for being smart and mature enough to protect themselves and others. So we keep pinning our hopes on the fact that there are new treatment methods for COVID-19. There are some promising medications that appear like they're going to help to keep the death rate low even as hospitalizations surge. Our Nusha Roy checked on the supply chain of those medications in Colorado and found some good news.
As the number of COVID patients sick enough to be admitted to the hospital surge, we asked Denver Health how their medication supply is doing.
Right now, we really don't have any issues.
Treatment has evolved since the spring to using high-flow oxygen, remdesivir, and dexamethasone.
Well, dexamethasone had a mortality benefit, so prevented people from dying. But it also seemed to prevent people from progressing, as you're indicating. So they come in, they require oxygen, you get them dexamethasone. A fewer proportion go on to need mechanical ventilation or intubation. And the same thing for remdesivir.
So it's a good thing production for remdesivir ramped up. And when cases had dropped off, hospitals like Denver Health stocked up. Dexamethasone has been around for a long time before the pandemic.
At the present time, we have an ample supply of those drugs. That's always subject to change, and that's a daily thing to watch. And that's really because the entire country is going through this surge, not just Colorado.
The story is similar across the Health One system.
It's true that the majority of people that get COVID-19 don't end up at the hospital. I think what that also tells us is that the fact that our hospitals are filling up means that there's a huge number of people with infections out there right now.
You don't always know who will fall really sick and who is asymptomatic. And when it comes to cost, the average wholesale price for remdesivir, which you can look at as a benchmark, is just over $3,000 for a 5-day course.
If you would say 5 days of hospitalization, that would more than offset a $3,000 cost, right?
Dexamethasone is much cheaper.
It's been around forever. It's generic, so there's multiple manufacturers.
So all of this matters because if you look specifically at Denver Health, they were never in a position where they had to make that incredibly tough decision of what patient gets medication and what doesn't. Even right now, as the hospital is quickly filling up, they have enough medications for the people coming in. That is fantastic. But we also know that this is a very quickly evolving situation, Kyle. So there are a lot of people across the state all keeping a very close eye on supply.
Anusha, one of the biggest questions state by state during the spring surge is who would end up with big bills for this treatment. Where did insurance shake out?
Yeah, so what the standard is right now is in most cases, insurance was going to cover these treatments. A doctor, though, has to sign off saying it's medically needed. The insurance company has to say, yeah, I agree with that, and then you're going to get coverage. But the thing is, your out-of-pocket cost, that's very much going to depend on what kind of plan you have. So I've said this like a million times, I think. Just check what your plan is. And a lot of insurance companies have actually waived their cost shares for COVID-19 treatment as well. So hopefully that'll be a little bit of guidance and helpful for people.
For sure. All right, reporting live from the Brick House, Anusha Roy. Thank you.
I also see people at the store not wearing masks, and Mom won't let me yell at them.
Maybe everyone in Colorado would mask up if a 9-year-old asked them nicely. She is our first elementary school-aged guest commentator, but she's got a lot to say. And tomorrow, thousands of restaurants in Colorado will have to close to indoor dining as the media falls all over itself to cover one restaurant opening. Our Marshall Zellinger has an idea about that. Next. May I make a recommendation? It's a good read about what used to be a great read in southern Colorado. The Columbia Journalism Review, which is a lot more interesting than it sounds, I promise, has a long story about the fight for quality local journalism in Pueblo and the lengths that one dedicated guy went to try and keep investigative reporting alive in that town. John Rodriguez ran Pulp. It was an alternative publication down in Pueblo that took a lot of shots at a lot of powerful people for various things over the years. And this article is about what happens when the funding for Pulp ran out, and Rodriguez went to some of those same power players to ask if community interests ought to be funding journalism in Pueblo. Put a link to that article on the next Facebook page.
A weak cool front moved through today, bringing temperatures out of the 70s into the 60s. A stronger storm could bring some snow to the state by the weekend. Temperatures in the 60s until the sunset, and then we'll watch those numbers slide overnight. As this system departs, the second colder one takes aim at Colorado. Temperatures will be cooler Friday, and into the 40s we go for the weekend, with potential for some light accumulation in the high country, but only a 20% chance of snow showers in Denver. In Denver for tonight, fair skies are low around freezing. Tomorrow, sunshine and 51. 40s for the weekend. A few snow showers Saturday, no accumulation. Broncos in town Sunday, maybe a snow shower Tuesday. And right now, the Thanksgiving Day forecast looks pretty good. Sunshine and upper 40s.
There is a restaurant opening tomorrow. It may warrant team smotherage on other news programs, but our Marshall Zellinger had a very different thought.
I did a double take when I saw all the excitement happening online about a long-awaited restaurant opening happening in my hometown tomorrow, Friday. The day restaurants in 15 counties across the state need to close dine-in service because of new COVID restrictions. Restaurants in Denver, Broomfield, Centennial, Littleton, Parker, and Aurora, where In-N-Out opens tomorrow. 20 years ago, I was in line at Krispy Kreme when it opened in Lone Tree to an hours-long drive-through line. I'm experienced in this topic, and I suggest you check out the list of dozens of restaurants recommended by viewers on the next Facebook page. As these locations close their dining rooms, you could always pick up some takeout on your way to an hours-long drive-through line in Aurora. Your tummy will thank you, and so will the local business, even the one you've been in and out of many times before.
If you have tried to reason with people about masks, tried to pass along the best expert medical guidance, and yet some folks still don't get it, perhaps try the approach of this third grader.
They need to think about everyone that could get corona if they were exposed.
I believe that she is the youngest essayist in this program's history, and she's next. Just got a note in from the state health department that an additional 5 counties are going to level red status as of Sunday. Alamosa, Otero, Prowers, Pueblo, and Weld. You'll recall on this program, Weld County's Republican commissioners suggested that they might just ignore the state if they were to impose new health restrictions. Good reminder of that old quote that science does not care if you believe in it. Even if you have heard a message before, sometimes it helps to hear it from a peer, a contemporary. So this next message is specifically for the 9-year-olds in the next audience. It's an essay from Irie Barrett from the Launched Virtual Academy in the St. Vrain School District.
I think that they don't think about it, and they need to. They need to think about everyone that could get corona if they were exposed. Hi, my name is Irie, and I'm in 3rd grade.
My name is Adrian Barrett, and I am Irie's mom.
In my opinion, people should wear masks. I feel this because then this pandemic would be over.
In her 3rd grade class this year, they have to learn a lot of different types of writing styles.
Masks help because they make it so less will get sick.
She had to pick something that was important to her and write some opinion that's important to her.
I also see people at the store not wearing masks, and Mom won't let me yell at them.
So Irie has acute lymphomatic leukemia, so she gets chemotherapy.
Germs are dangerous to people like me. It makes me angry when my friends do not wear masks when playing outside together on the park.
It's a small person, but someone who's affected by it more than the average person. So even though she's little, her opinion is important.
It could affect me by I would have to go to the hospital and stay there for a long time and not be with most of my family. And my parents would have to stay away from me. But I love cuddling.
The bar to get on our You've Crossed a Line segment is pretty high, but you know what? This is pretty low. Driving your SUV up onto a pedestrian bridge on the South Platte River Trail in Denver. Denver police came in and towed the vehicle, told us they're not sure how it got there or who was driving it at the time. Dinah writes in tonight to say, I'm not seeing my daughter for Thanksgiving. She's an ER nurse. She's my only daughter. How do you think we feel? I'm sure it's difficult, and I hope that you're proud. See you next time.